Welcome to camp. We've taken a look at all of the tools and tips and tricks that I use in the kitchen to make lovely meals on the road, and now we're actually going to make the action happen right here. First, I'm going to show you a favorite breakfast recipe for oatmeal with strawberry chia jam. It's a quick jam that you can make before you leave or in camp, and the oatmeal recipe is really flexible too, so let's dive right in. All you need are fresh fruits, in this particular case strawberries, a little bit of salt, a little bit of lemon, and some chia seed to set it up. The fruit cooks down, and then the chia seed makes it into this lovely jammy consistency that I'm going to put on top of a lovely bowl of oatmeal. Let's talk about the oatmeal recipe, the base of this breakfast. There are 3 different ways that I prepare it. The first is that you can absolutely make this as an overnight oatmeal before you even leave the house. Or let's say that you just have a busy day at home, you can use this recipe to make a delicious overnight oatmeal that's packed with almost all of the 6 flavors that our bodies perceive. To do this, you're just going to combine all the ingredients in a jar or a container, add some liquid, and stick it in the refrigerator overnight, and then enjoy it in the morning. You can also make it on a stovetop, whether at home or in camp, or if it's a little bit windy, as it was earlier today, you can just pop into the RV, and sometimes I'll even cook it in the rice cooker that I keep on board, which means that the process is really quick and easy, and I can go out for a walk or take a swim in the lake while my oatmeal is cooking. So let's dive into cooking these 2 lovely components that come together in one beautiful meal. I'm just going to fire up my propane cooker, and I'm going to go ahead and add my berries to the pan. This is about a pint of strawberries. All of your specific measurements for this recipe are going to be in your downloadable documents. If I'm honest, most of the time when I make this, I just eyeball it. So my stove heats up pretty quickly. It's really important for me to watch the heat here, because if I don't, this jam will start to burn. But you notice I also didn't add anything to the pot. It's literally just the strawberries, and the heat's gonna cook them down and turn them into a nice liquid. To help that process, I'm gonna add a pinch of salt, which will help draw the strawberry juice out even more and will aid in that cooking process. But you notice I'm not adding any sugar. I'm squeezing my lemon because I wanna make sure it's nice and juicy. It's gonna add a little bit of moisture to this jam. Jam still looks good. The jam's gonna take quite a bit longer than the oats, so if you're making these 2 things together, you're gonna wanna start it first, as I'm doing here. And already I can see that the juices are releasing and the strawberries are starting to break down. It's starting to smell like strawberry shortcake, even though there's no shortcake here. And actually, your nose is gonna be a great tool in knowing when your jam is done, and you could stop it at any point. So once you've got some juices released and you can add your chia seeds, if you like your jam to be more chunky, you can let the strawberries stay intact, or you can cook it down until it's quite smooth. Keep stirring here. I have my heat on kind of like medium high, and that's preventing my berries from burning. While I'm watching this happen, I'm gonna go ahead and start the oats, which is a really easy process and typically will happen pretty fast. If it happens before my jam is done, I'm just gonna go ahead and cover the oats and keep them warm. So into this other little pot here, I'm gonna add my oats. Here I have some sprouted rolled oats, but you could use quick oats or any rolled oat. If you're using steel cut oats for this recipe, you're gonna wanna make sure they're soaked overnight, or else they're gonna take a very long time to cook, especially in camp. You never really want to turn heat onto a dry pan, especially these kind of lightweight camping style ones. So always make sure you've got something in the pan before you turn on the heat. So now I'm going to add a small tablespoon of my ghee to this pot. And I'm going to toast the oats briefly before I start to add the other ingredients. And this is going to happen fast, and I need to be pretty careful because, again, it's not a large quantity of liquid that this pot's cooking, and I don't want it to burn or to ruin the pot. So I'm just kind of quickly stirring the ghee into the oats. And when I can start to smell the oats being toasted, or they kind of get this like toasty scent, I know that I can add my other ingredients. So to this pot of oats, I'm gonna add an equivalent amount of water. So I've got about 1 cup of oats here. If you were gonna scale up, you'd want a little bit more, about a half cup of oats per person. And I've got about a cup, maybe a little bit more than a cup of water. Again, you see I'm kind of eyeballing this, and that's fine because I can basically cook the oats until all of the water's evaporated. Just stirring to make sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom of the pan. Strawberries are still doing well. Oh yeah, they're getting all jammy and really juicy. Okay, so to this pot here, to my oat pot, which hopefully will start to boil here pretty quickly, I'm gonna add some spices. We talked about the 6 flavors, and this is where I'm gonna add all 6 flavors into this bowl of oatmeal where you probably won't even recognize them. So the first thing I'm gonna add is a little bit of ground ginger powder. I typically kind of eyeball this, but I'm going to use a measuring spoon just to make sure that my pinches are a bit more accurate for you. This is about 1/8 of a teaspoon of ginger, maybe a little bit more. Ginger, by the way, this is a pungent spice, so this is great for our digestion. It helps these kind of like thick and sweet oats to be digested faster for us, and it also gets our metabolism going. So if we're headed out for a bike ride, it's going to kind of warm our bodies up a little bit. This next spice is cinnamon, just some ground cinnamon. And again, I'm going to add about 1/8 of a teaspoon to this pot of ground cinnamon. And then lastly, I'm going to add a little cardamom. Both cardamom and cinnamon are sweet, and they're super soothing to our body, so it's a really nice flavor combination to use in our oatmeal to start the day. Give this a gentle stir and make sure that the spices are incorporated. You have two options for when you can add the spices here. You can either add them with the ghee when you're toasting the oats, or you can add them into the water, but either way you need to activate the spices with heat. Sprinkling them on top of your oatmeal won't bring all the benefits of the essential oils from those spices into your body. So you want to make sure we're activating them first. We're going to let this guy boil. Oh, one more thing, I'm going to add a very fat pinch of salt. Oatmeal doesn't taste like very much unless we open our palate so that we can taste it. So I'm going to add a nice fat pinch of salt here, and that's going to bring out the flavors of the spices and of the oats, which are delicious, by the way. That was like 2.5 pinches of salt, so don't be shy. I'm not going to add any maple syrup or honey or sugar of any kind to my oats because I'm going to add them to the bowl later. We're just going to let that hang out. Shifting back to this pot, we can see that the jam is definitely starting to get jammy, and there's quite a bit of juices that have released from my strawberries. Again, I can take this and cook it for as long as I like. I could cook it for another half an hour and watch as the strawberries literally disintegrate into kind of like this lovely mush, or I can keep them a little bit whole as they are here. Because I'm still cooking my pot of oats, I'm gonna kind of let it hang out, but just know that there's no way that you can mess this up. You get to be the master of your own strawberry chia jam adventure. So I talked about how you could use this breakfast from a travel tactical standpoint, but it's also important to know that this is a really great nourishing tool for if you're going out on an active adventure. Whether you're eating this little bowl to nourish yourself before a big ride or before your playtime, it's awesome for that, but it's also great as a nice recovery bowl for when you come home after an early morning raid. It's equally friendly for grown people, and little kids love it too, especially when you add a big fat dollop of chia jam on top. It's like so sweet and just a little bit salty. It's going to be perfect. I think it's ready actually. We'll go ahead and doctor our jam right now. So I'm going to turn off the heat. You can probably see that my jam has a lot of nice liquid and that the strawberries have broken down a great bit, but I still have some good chunks. So it doesn't just look like raspberry slop. It definitely looks like cooked down strawberries. And now I'm going to go ahead and squeeze a little bit of lemon juice in here, and actually add a little bit of lemon zest as well. It's just gonna brighten up the jam, and it's gonna contribute to those 6 flavors. So we already have the sweet, we have the salty. Now we're gonna give a little sour, just a tiny bit. This microplane grater, man, gotta have one. And I'm gonna go ahead and use all of the juice of this 1/2 lemon, which is a good bit. I'm gonna give this a little stir. The lemon juice just added a little bit of liquid to my jam, which is great because when I add my chia seeds, they're gonna absorb about 3 times their weight in liquid, but it's also gonna give my jam a nice jammy texture. So let me add that now. Again, this is an ingredient that I don't really measure with a spoon, but I'm gonna do it for you now so that you can see about how much I'm using. For this quantity, I'm gonna drop in about a tablespoon of chia seed. And lastly, I'm gonna add a pinch of this cardamom. And I'm literally gonna add just a pinch, I'm not gonna measure it. It's just a very subtle flavor. I don't want it to be too overpowering, and cardamom can be a little overpowering, and when we use too much, it tastes a little bit like soap. The chia is gonna absorb some of the liquid, and it's gonna set the jam up. And I'm gonna just let that hang out for maybe 10 minutes or so while my oats finish cooking. Okay, so it's been a few minutes. I've been allowing my oats to cook and the water to boil, and it's looking pretty good now. So I'm gonna go ahead and lower the heat a little bit, and then stir in a little bit of almond butter or coconut butter. In this case, almond butter, but whatever type of nut butter you're keeping in your RV is perfect to use. The almond butter is just gonna thicken it up a little bit and add a little bit of flavor. It's just for fun, really. See, the almond butter kind of melts into the oatmeal. And then I'm gonna turn off the heat completely because I no longer need to melt the almond butter. I still have one more big chunk of almond butter here. Just stir that out. And once the almond butter is nice and smooth and melted into your oats, you're ready to divide the oatmeal between bowls. Transfer a little bit of oatmeal to my bowl. If you're gonna travel with your oats, or if you're doing overnight oats, you'll just put them in a jar, and they do great like that. And then I'm gonna top my oatmeal. You can top your oatmeal with anything you like. I particularly enjoy adding a little bit of yogurt, some crunchy granola for texture, and then of course, a big fat scoop of strawberry chia jam, and maybe another pinch of salt, especially if I'm gonna go play outside and get all sweaty all day. And that's how we make oatmeal with strawberry chia jam. Since we're on a 2-day adventure, we've got 2 different breakfasts to show you. Next up, I'm gonna teach you how to make a fresh chilaquiles with leftover tortilla chips from your party the night before.